newspaper. Finally, I'm delighted to be joined by Mario Cretura, who is a former special advisor to Theresa May. Great to see you, and thank you very much for finding time for us. Did Ardern's explanation ring true for you, having worked very closely with another celebrated female leader in this country who got the top job?
No, it did. I think there's a huge amount to be said for the pressure that our prime ministers are under. There's a lot to the job. Their diaries are chock full of different commitments. And as you've said before, there's a lot of scrutiny, quite rightly, about the role and the decisions that they take. And I think crucially to that is a decision for the individual that once you've spent so long, in many cases decades, trying to get to the pinnacle of your political career, the situation that you're faced with often isn't of your making. So it's very much like a game of musical chairs, that when you feel that it's time to sit down, you sit down, and you're faced with the situation that you're faced with, whether it's COVID or Brexit or a cost of living crisis or the situation in Ukraine. Prime ministers, wherever they are in the world, have to make judgments at all times to try and see whether they are able to command a majority confidence in their parliament, their legislature, or frankly, in and of themselves. And so I think that Miss Ardern, when she was talking about not having enough in the tank, it's actually quite a noble thing to do. It's very hard to relinquish power.
Let me just underline one other crucial difference between Theresa and Jacinda, and that is that the attacks on Theresa, with nothing to do with misogyny at all, occasional tongue-in-cheek jokes about the footwear, but they were about policy, whether it was about immigration, about law and order, about Europe. When the party or the commentariat were having a go at Theresa May, it was on policy. That's more grown up.
I think so, and I think that when you're in that position, you're trying to justify your position at all times. But even still, the tricky job of being prime minister means that you do need to invest a huge amount of personal energy and passion into your role, and that does come at a cost, and eventually you do run out of steam. I think that's true of everyone. David Cameron very famously said when he was asked about a possible third term that 2 Weetabix are great, but a third might be too much. And I think that ability to reflect on your ability, your enthusiasm for the role, if you feel that you're wanting, that can only be good for your country, whether it's informed by the political reality or your personal passions and energy levels.
Worked so closely with the Prime Minister, who once described her own party as having once again become the nasty party. How much? I'll put the same question I put to Alex and to Aubrey. How much trouble do you think Rishi Sunak's government is in?
I think that Rishi's doing a phenomenal job. I mean, you mentioned his 5 pledges of halving inflation, growing the economy, reducing the debt, tackling migration, and helping to cut NHS waiting lists. And I think that if he and his administration are able to do that, then I think the British public will allow them the time to be able to do that, because they're very important matters, particularly with the cost of living crisis and the war in Ukraine being front of a lot of people's minds. I think Alex and Aubrey have mentioned that the seat belt and other issues recently are relatively low down the priority order. The priority list for most members of the British public. And I think if we can get back to some of the really important matters that are facing people in my area and people that I know, then I think that Rishi will be a very successful Prime Minister, and I hope the best is yet to come.
Great talking to you, Mario. Thank you very much for those thoughts and for your reflections on Theresa as well. Very, very good to see you on the programme. Thank you very much indeed. That's Mario Cretura, former special advisor to Theresa May in her time as leader of the Conservative Party and indeed Prime Minister. You're watching and listening to Alastair Stewart and Friends, with lots more coming up on today's programme, including some of the stuff that Mario was just talking about.